Hi, I'm Lee. Today we're here at the Charles Sturt University Fish Labs. We're going to learn all about pit tagging. Pit tagging is a special technology where we put microchips into fish and we use that for all sorts of information about fish migration. But as you'll see today, pit tagging is a very specialist technique and there's lots of different little techniques we have to learn to do it properly. So that's going to be the focus of all of our things we do today. There's lots of specific equipment we need for pit tagging. Here we have our aerated fish tanks, which are important for keeping the fish and for recovery. We've got all of our different pieces of equipment here, which we'll go through in detail. We also need our fish anaesthetic and our fish recovery bins. But essentially, prior to thinking about putting tags in fish, we need to have a fairly orderly type of workstation so that we look after the fish and also ourselves. So effectively, this is what we're here to learn about today. This is a pit tag, sometimes known as a microchip. It's the same technology that gets put into cats and dogs for identification. We're just putting them into fish so that we can identify fish. So we can get pit tags which are actually quite large. This is a 23mm tag, which is designed for big fish. We can also get much smaller tags which go into smaller fish. And really the size of the tag depends on your research questions and the type of fish that you're working on. When the tag itself goes into an antenna's electromagnetic field, it powers the copper cable and that causes the tag to transmit its unique number, and that's picked up by the antenna. So that's what actually makes this technology work for fish. So one of the advantages of pit tags is that they don't have a battery, so they remain inactive until they're actually scanned by a reader or a scanner. The reader itself sends out a very low frequency signal via the antenna, and that's received or picked up by a copper coil which is within the tag itself. Because the copper coil is wrapped around a ferrite core, that creates an inductive charge in the tag itself and that powers the microchip. It then transmits the code back to the reader and then the data is sent to a database or however it's captured. Okay, so we need a few essential pieces of equipment before we even start tagging the fish. Here we have the needles or the applicator. This one with a protective piece of plastic on the end, not only to protect yourself, it's also to protect the sharpness of the needle. We need the needle very sharp so that we can operate on the fish better. We also have preloaded ones here, which can be loaded into a gun like this. Depending on the size of the tag, depends on which one of these is the best suited for your needs. We also have the tag detector itself. This here contains an antenna. It also has a screen which can tell you the tag number. This particular model also has a data logger function where it records the data as you scan the fish. Also essential are gloves. Gloves protect your own hands. Gloves also protect the fish from any damage when you're handling the fish. We'll need some anaesthetic. We'll go through this a little later on, but anaesthetic is essential so that the fish are calmed down. Pit tagging is actually considered a surgical technique, so we need to anaesthetise the fish and put it to sleep before we tag it. Measuring board like this one is essential. It's curved so that it meets the shape of the fish as well. We can handle the fish easily. We can also measure the fish and take any essential components that we need. And finally, the data sheet is extremely critical because this is where we put all of the information about the fish which we later enter into the database. You can design any kind of database you need for your needs, but there are certain critical elements that we'll go through. And finally, you also need some tubs, one for the anaesthetic and one for recovery. These are absolutely critical so that we can prepare the fish for the operation and that we have all of the equipment all easily accessible so that we can process the fish as quickly as possible. So that effectively rounds off the critical equipment that we need before we get started. And it's important that before you do get started, whether you're on the river, on a boat or in a lab, you have it all set up in a comfortable way. You want to be able to move around freely and comfortably. You don't want to stress the fish at all. You don't want to stress yourself. So make sure you're dressed comfortably, you have all of your equipment accessible, and that everything's fully prepared before you actually start to get the fish and prepare the equipment for the tagging process. So now we'll actually go into the step-by-step processes of actually going through preparing the fish for tagging, doing the tagging, and then helping the fish recover once the tagging process is completed.